Welcome to Locked In. Tonight, I'm going to pose a question to begin this show to Chance and Rev. Seems a little absurd, but just follow me. So, Chance, we're offensive guys, right? I got a proposition for you. It's 3rd and 11. What do you want to do?
I'd say we probably need to pass the ball.
Actually, I think that we ought to try an inside run. What do you say to that?
Whatever floats your boat, I guess.
Okay, so what if I tell you that there's a good chance we could get some big yards off of this? Do you believe me?
You know, in some world, sure.
Well, let me tell you which world this exists in. The crazy world of Michigan football 2023-24. I'm going to give you just a list of numbers right here and tell me, you two, on a scale of 1 to 10, how absurd this sounds. 2nd and 8, 44 yards. 3rd and 11, 22-yard touchdown. 2nd and 14, 41-yard touchdown. 2nd and 10, 46-yard touchdown. 153 yards, 3 touchdowns, over a 38-yard average. On a scale of 1 to 10, how absurd does that seem?
Yeah, it's if not a 10, at least a 9.
I'd say that's a 10. That's unreal.
It really is. I mean, it happens. It happens that people break long runs.
Sure.
We've seen it. You see it, at every level of the game. And I mean, I'm always reminded of like a high school wing T team, they'll run trap on 3rd down. And sometimes, by golly, they break it. But that's rare. It can happen, but very often it's a total surprise or it's a mismatch. The team that scores is better than the other. College and pros, it can happen. Anything can happen. But consistently, I don't know.
Right.
So I think tonight we've talked a lot about the Michigan defense of late. I want to jump into the Michigan offense and look at this particular play that they're running. Now, whether they're all the same, I don't know. But they are certainly in the same family. And I don't know what Michigan would call it. Some people would say that this springs out of, the duo family, which is similar to an inside zone, but it features 2 double-team blocks up front and the back reads the hole that opens. It also looks a lot like a kind of inside zone. I don't know what it is, but I think that the thing that distinguishes this play from a lot of others is that you will have tight end and a wing that are blocking out, and you will have the other offensive lineman blocking down, one of the simplest concepts that you could ever run, and there is a hole that opens up. I want to show this the first time that we see it break. Now, we would be incorrect to say this is the first time that they try it, because there's actually an earlier example from the Penn State game in which Michigan runs the exact same formation and runs what I think is the same play, but it doesn't achieve as great an effect here. Now, we're not going to go back to that earlier when we want to stick with the later play and show you the long run that comes off of it. But the biggest difference whenever you look at the earlier play compared to this play is that Penn State, after seeing this formation a second time, which I think has something to do with it, I think that Michigan baited them a little bit. When they see this formation, which is going to feature a tackle at tight end, a defensive lineman who comes in as a blocker, and a tight end playing the outside wing. So a tackle over a tight end and 2 wings. Penn State sees it the second time, they're going to try something different. So they match strength with strength, and they play a true heavy formation against this. So what we see before we begin is they're going to flip the formation with the strength to the left. This causes a little bit of confusion. I'm not sure they did that on the last one. We don't have the full film. I wish we did. But they flipped the line, and so that means you will see 0 and 43 from Penn State shift across the formation. Now, you've got the one cornerback out with the outside receiver, who's I guess just a wide receiver in this case, split wide. The shift happens, and the thing that you will notice is that nobody really goes out to play contain for Penn State. And what happens is just a bit of magic from Blake Corum. So let's take a look at this. So we see the flip Penn State adjusts accordingly, keeps every man on the line, a safety deep, 2 linebackers.
Yeah, and Corum just breaks it right outside.
Yeah, and away we go.
So when we go back and look at this, you'll see 0 just take an inside angle. And that's what really messes up. I mean, there's nobody over here. I mean, it is just green grass because you got to think your corner and your wide receivers over here. So they're running to the strength. Well, I mean, technically they're bouncing it to the strength, but you have that linebacker who's having to play right here along with the other one, unless you would like to say your 0 tech right here is 2 gapping. Um, I guess technically, they would have more of a free range, these linebackers, but they really have and are scraping over. I mean, honestly though, you got to think Michigan's running inside just like they did on the play earlier in the game. So I mean that you give good reason for Penn State to all slant inside. There's just nobody outside. They just lose their contain here. They sell out to stop the run inside, and they get burnt because of it.
So the question that I've got for this one that I would like to mean, and we obviously can't know, but I wonder, did they intend to align this way? Because on the earlier play, there was a cornerback who walked up to the outside of number 0. 0 is actually, maybe he's supposed to be in that spot, and maybe he is a contained man. And like you said, they are anticipating Corum to dive the center of the line because that's what he did before. But that's where the hole was before. So if you watch it, I mean, here's the thing I think so interesting about watching from this angle. Watch the linebacker, the left linebacker, number 11 for Penn State. Watch what he does right here.
Which there's going to be a hole right there, and he's going to go to it right there. He's going to go to it, and then Blake's going to see that hole, and then he's going to see it's all stopped up and just kick it right outside.
But see, the thing of it is, I don't think will you roll that back just 1 second to watch what that the Penn State linebacker does here. I don't think that he does anything wrong in particular because you're trained to scrape to daylight. You feel daylight.
Yep.
There's daylight. That is the hole. I mean, am I wrong? I mean, I'm more of an offensive guy, but that is what every linebacker is taught to do. I don't think 11 makes the wrong move. Okay, so now what he should do, the next obvious hole is between 93 and 89.
Right.
And so that should be the next hole that he scrapes down to in order to fill up. And so what happens, I mean, the biggest thing right here, A.J. Barner, the tight end, who catches a lot of passes for Michigan, he gets a heck of a block right here. And honestly, he just he's trying to force him out. So he wants that hole.
Yep.
Linebacker's going to come meet in that hole. Corum sees, I think, that there's not a soul there. And so Barnum's just locked up with this dude. 11's trying to get across the top. Corum has got an angle that there's no way the linebacker can catch him. But even more than that, look at the deep safety. His feet are turned to the opposite side. So he's expecting something totally other.
He's frozen.
And by this point, who can catch Corum? I mean, who can catch him right here? They're very lucky. I mean, now I'm not going to say lucky. Penn State's a good defense. They know how to play. They know how to play pursuit, and they did a good job of not letting this turn into a touchdown. But what a brilliant run!
Yeah, I think they drew that one up perfectly, according to this Penn State defense. And with that being said, so they go on to do this 4 more times. We'll see. With this next one, you have kind of the same look. It's just instead of you having 2 extra linemen and a tight end, you have a tight end out here with 2 wide receivers, to spread it out more. But you still, yeah, I'll say, but you still get 4 guys covering their 3. So you still get that. And the bad thing is you have number 4 on the backside. But with that being said, what does number 4 do? Well, number 4 is going to shoot upfield, and so will 20. And, you're taught 1 yard deep and then scrape down the line to running back. So they should be right here, and you see them 3 yards deep, and they just get too far upfield, and Edwards makes a good cut right there to come back. But you'll see this run a lot with Michigan, where they'll have a wall, and then somebody blocking backside like a tight end, and they'll just have these three guys make a wall right here. Technically these four, and this tight end, he just bumps 20 out right here, and 20 just gets that one little bump, gets 20 off of steps, gets him too far out and up, and then you'll see this tight end block back. So they have this design for the cutback for Edwards, and you'll see that a lot in their film.
And one of the things too that I will say, just with the formation in the beginning, like you said, the most inside receiver, number 3 receiver at the top of the screen is Colston Loveland, who is a tight end.
Mm.
So I almost think, and Rev, you react to that, because if you're calling defense and you see a second tight end come out there, you're in 21 personnel.
Yep.
And a defense is going to read 21 personnel as 21 personnel. And, and you have to think we should key the run right here. But here's the problem. I mean, the tough thing is that they have Roman Wilson in the number 2 spot, who's their best receiver. So if you go on with that, you have to say there's a really good shot that in this scenario, they might run him on a slot fade from that number 2 spot and put somebody who might not be comfortable guarding him man to man in a tough situation. So the pass threat, even though it is 21 personnel, the pass threat is really, really alive. And so I think that occupies the safety maybe a little bit more than if it were true double tight end, 21 personnel. I think he would be more to the middle of the field, but right here he can't be, because he has to be able to help on the passing threat. So that moves him kind of out of just the frame almost of making this play. And then, like what Chance said, you could chalk it up to a great cutback, but as we roll this play, whenever you see those three offensive linemen right there in the middle of the field, who are just absolutely at a diagonal, and so those guys, like if we play this, what do we see here? So right there, 77, 60, 65, and 52. So all these guys are at least 52, 62, 65. These are all very experienced linemen, very experienced. A couple of them, if I recall right, they are graduate students. And so you've got 65, Zach Zenner climbs up, takes out the middle linebacker, absolutely takes this guy out, bullies him even. That just makes this hole even worse. Well, look at 52, Carson Barnhart. Look at his block. That's what I like to see in an offensive lineman, is whenever your back is turned to the hole, that seals everything off, and it's very, very hard for a defender to overcome that. I mean, you're basically whipped. And so, I think that this is pretty. This is some pretty good stuff that you're seeing right there, from Michigan. And I'm really impressed the more I watch this particular play. And I know he catches a lot of passes and he's good at it. But the tight end here, A.J. Barner, who is a transfer from Indiana, he first, like Chance said, he makes the Penn State defender number 20 have to run the hump right there. 20 engages with him, and even as he goes by, you can still see 20 is trying to shove him off. That's enough to make that hole open a little bit more so that Edwards can get through it. But watch what Barner, the tight end right here, 89, does to 20, who I would read as a strong safety playing up as a linebacker at this point. Watch this. Absolutely seals the hole off. Killer block. Now, that was that's a bit of providence right there, I think you have to say, because 6, Penn State safety, he looks like he clips the referee's heel. The back judge's heel gets him. And I think that's the extra block that springs the run, I think. But nevertheless, this is a great run in an obvious passing situation. 3rd and 11. Who in the world is going to do this? So here's my thought with it. I think Michigan has something that they're working here. I think it's a designed cutback play. You're walling off the front side of the defense, and you're pushing out the back side of the defense to create this cutback lane. But here's the thing that I think about it, is that whenever you take this and you look at what you've got at the top of the screen, you have got the deep safety, number 6, who comes over to contest the play. That's one. We have an outside linebacker who is shaded to the inside of the number 3 receiver, Loveland, the tight end. That's 2. You also have probably another safety over here, maybe a cornerback. I don't know the personnel. I'm sorry, Penn State people. And you have a cornerback, but you have, the guy right on Wilson's face, and you have the cornerback up to the top of the screen. You have 4 defenders committed to 3 receivers, one of whom is a tight end who is very likely to block, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden, you split your field, and you've given them an advantage to the backside. Now, here's my read on it. I think the Corum run sets up something that really hurts Penn State right here. Number 4, their cornerback. Now, we've griped about different teams not having the outside contain. Rev, you've said that a lot. You've talked about that, really for quite a while, even before we were doing the show.
Right.
Penn State solves this problem by leaving number 4. But here's the problem you see. Number 4 goes all the way up to and past the line of scrimmage. He cannot contest that play. He does not have containment simply because he has ran out of the play. Cardinal sin of playing on the defensive line. And here's my thought. When you have a cornerback who is coming up to provide outside contain, especially if he's that close, he's no longer a cornerback. You can say he is a cornerback, in title. He's playing outside linebacker defensive end right here.
Right.
And do you ever want, you've coached a lot of defense, do you ever want anyone playing on the line of scrimmage, whether he is a 340-pound defensive tackle or whether he is a 195-pound cornerback, to run 3 yards deep in the backfield?
No.
What's the problem that is created by having a defensive line player run into the backfield?
Well, I mean, you kind of see it. You run out of the play. So we talk about with like, let's talk about like the containment man. So this guy off the edge, his whole job is to not let anything go outside of him and keep everything inside. So the ball carrier sees him, right? So this area that was shaded right there, he's trying to contain that space. The idea of, defense, you don't want to let big time playmakers get in space because it's harder to take them down there. So when you have the outside, your whole goal is to keep them within you where the teeth of your defense is. Now, number 4, his job here is to contain. Previous play, there was no corner there on the outside, and Corum found it. So in this one, you want him to sit where he's at, because if you run up the field like this, you create a massive hole now, and now there's nobody outside. So something else, coming down out of the play right here, if you miss, because your job is to be that farthest outside guy, you've removed yourself from your containment, because now you can't play up or you can't play down the field and attack it and force it inside. You already are down the field. So now you've removed yourself out of the spot that you're supposed to be in, and now you can't affect this play back into the teeth of the defense because you're no longer there anymore. If number 4 is playing, where that G is, that Big Ten symbol right on that line, if he's sitting there, he's scraping down the line, he's keeping everything contained in front of him, then he's able to, one, either make the tackle, slow him down, or force Edwards back inside to the defense where you have linebackers and you have pursuit. Now, I will say, it's going to be, it would still be a good run for Michigan just because of the way they have this block. Like we talked about, 89 makes a good block on 21. Mm-hmm. So he's your next force player on this, because it'll be 4 and 20 that are trying to make this play with a safety coming down. But it won't be a touchdown because 4 has affected the run. He's not allowed Edwards to get a full steam ahead, and Edwards is a quick back. So if you don't make him change direction or you don't make contact with him, he's gone. And just by running up the field here, 4 removes himself from containment. So you got to think about it also in this way. When you are playing from the back of it and you're keeping everything in front of you, you're then able to force what's in front of you to move left or right. So if I have a guy running at me and I have the sideline to my left, if I take the outside containment, if I take the outside shoulders, that runner, if he is worth anything, he's going to go inside because he knows that I am trying to take away the outside from him. And by my movement as a defensive player, I can force him to go somewhere else. But because 4 is at this point parallel with a running back, he can't force him to do anything. Now it's just a race, and it's a race that he loses because since he has containment and he's the furthest outside guy, he's got people in his way. So 20 is in his way, 4 can't get back to him, and it's too late anyway. Especially just because of yeah, I mean he's committed to it anyway. He's committed extra 2 extra steps inside, and it's something else that I don't like. It's also not running up the field, but it's running inside. He starts on the like the outward of that Big Ten symbol there. But then when you see where he's at, now he's on the inside of it.
Yep.
He crosses over. So not only are you going upfield and kind of removing the space that you're able to utilize to force people to move around, but you're also getting sucked inside of the play where one big hole and all of a sudden the running back is now outside of you.
And something too there are 2 things that I want to say about this one, because I think this is just a brilliant. Now, Penn State is a dang good defense.
Yes.
This was a slobber knocker of a game. I mean, it was fun to watch, and it's fun to go back and watch again. I think that Penn State is trying to, I think they're trying to hedge their bets in a lot of ways right here, because no doubt they know that Michigan can spring. I mean, they can spring runs. And so you've got to be thinking about that. But if you watch what happens, like I said, with those top defenders all concerned with the pass, watch how fast this top defensive end, the right defensive end for Penn State, Danny Dennis Sutton, that dude gets off the football. If you take that to the beginning of the play, watch how fast he gets off. There is no doubt in my mind he is coming for the quarterback. Watch him. Oh, my gosh.
He's a yard ahead of everybody.
Now, okay, at the bottom, number 20. Now, he's worth mentioning. I mean, his name's Adisa Isaac, and he led the team in sacks. He is a dadgum good football player.
Yep.
He's a little slow off the ball, and I think that his takeoff hurt him and let this play happen. I think that if he can get through, maybe even his positioning, because it looks like that he wants that. He wants to get inside, but he's a little too far out, and he has to. I go back and say he has to deal with Barnum, the tight end. And when he goes up, I think that the thing that Edwards does right here that is really, really smart, and it's why I think that these are designed cutback runs, in my opinion. He presses the middle of the line. Look how long he stays on that hash mark. And by staying on that hash mark, just roll a little bit more. The closer he stays to 52, still on him, the harder it is for Isaac to make that tackle, number 20. So that's some skill. I mean, to me, every time that I look at these runs, I'm thinking that is some absolute elite coaching and some elite playing. And one of the things that we've seen a lot of people say in the comments is that they bring out the how well Michigan is coached, like what kind of coaching staff they have, especially on defense. But with this doesn't just naturally happen. This is a training thing. And I mean, I'm so impressed at how they get this play pulled off, because it doesn't look like a very complicated play, and it's not. But the nuance in it is really amazing. Edwards never even looks back I'm sure he sees Adisa Isaac in his peripheral vision, but he never stops to look at him. That would slow him down. Press the line, make your cut, and you're going to be impossible to catch right here in this scenario. I mean, this is a great play.
Yeah, just talking about the speed of off the ball here, where he's lined up, it looks like he's on the inside shade of the tight end. Or at least he's head up at the most. He's not on the outside at all. But he doesn't react until the tight end is already out of his stance. Oh, now the play is happening. Well, as soon as the tight end comes out of his stance, the tight end is attacking the defensive ends inside. So I'm not going to let you get this inside gap anymore. I'm going to make you bubble out, which that's part of this design that we're talking about here. So part of this play is predicated on this tight end getting this block. If he does not get in the way of this, 20 makes the play directly in the backfield, unless Edwards is able to, escape it. But it's a lot easier of a play for him to make. But he forces that outside. Now you got 2 guys. So he's effectively blocking. He's already blocked 20. He's somewhat hurt 4, because now 4 has 20 in his way, which by design and the way they were lined up, especially because it seemed like they were playing contain with their corner, their end should have been taking the inside gap and then 4 scrapes down. But now he's bubbled out even further because 20 is in his way. And then you make a block on 21.
What I would add to that, and this is just, I mean, this is just, a coaching point. Like if there's anybody who plays offensive line, tight end, which I mean, I guess we can, tight ends will be counted as offensive linemen because it's part of their job.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we mean when we talk about going to the second level. Like a lot of times, you'll hear people, let's say, climb the second level or, scoop the back or whatever. Your first job is to affect that defender in front of you.
Right.
Make him run the hump, as people will say. Make him bubble out, as Rev said, and then get up and make your block. And what your block is right here is if that defender goes outside, you take him more outside. But in this case, that safety comes up and goes into the heart of the formation, take him that way. I mean, that's exactly what if you watch this, this is a teaching tape. What A.J. Barnum does is this is a teaching tape on how to get to the second level and create a cutback lane, because that is what most second level blockers are really becoming, is they're allowing the running back to see a deeper, or I guess a more distant hole than what he might see at the line of scrimmage. And were it not for that block, that play gets stopped probably right there, or it gets stopped shortly after, because that safety can affect Donovan Edwards. So that's something, kudos to Barnum, because that's a great play. That's a great block. That's just, it don't get much better than this. And the thing I would add on this is that this is not confined to just to one game.
Mm-hmm.
This is a concept that keeps on going. But before we leave Penn State, my opinion, that's that Donovan Edwards touchdown, that second touchdown of the game. Here's why I think it's important. If my take on Penn State, Michigan, if I'm the Penn State coach coming in, if I'm James Franklin, I know in my heart we have a great defense, but we are limited on offense, and Michigan is not. Now, Michigan they don't come out and sling the ball all over the field. They play a different kind of high-power offense. They run the ball. I mean, they're gonna absolutely grind you. I mean, this is a game where they're famous for running it 32 straight times. Now, you could say, well, maybe they just didn't want to pass it. No, passing was quite good. J.J. McCarthy was 7 of 8 in this game. Passing was quite good. They had a specific game plan that they wanted to use to attack Penn State. And to me, I think that speaks volumes of McCarthy. Most quarterbacks on big-time teams, they are not going to be humble enough to say, you know what, if we got to run it 32 times to win this and keep, the championship season intact, so be it. We're going to run it 32 times. And if I don't throw 10 passes and we win, I've done the right thing. So, I mean, it speaks volumes to the kind of character he has, I think. But where I think that the problem with that 3rd and 11 play was, there was a lot of tension riding there. They could have kicked a field goal. They could have tried something and maybe not have converted and kicked the field goal. And if they had, Penn State comes back, they answer the score, and Penn State would have kicked an extra point right there, went into halftime 10-10 unless something bizarre happens, on that, last short little possession for Michigan, which it didn't. Okay, so they go into halftime 10-10. They come out and they get the ball. Now, it was famously turned over on that drive, but imagine if it's 10-10 at halftime, they go into the locker room, James Franklin and company, they say, all right, boys, we got them where we want them. We got a shot. We got to figure out how to get a few more points, but we got them where we want them. But here's what happened. They get that touchdown, and when Penn State answers the Donovan Edwards touchdown run, they go for 2, and they fail. To me, I think one of the riskiest things that you can do after a touchdown is go for 2 when you don't have to, because if you don't make it, it's a downer. And some people might not believe in momentum. I do believe in momentum. And it's one of those deals that if you're a team who knows that points are hard to come by, you're playing a great defense who also has a great offense, you don't tie that up before the half, I think you're asking questions. And I think that the question that would, really be, in your mind is like, do the coaches think we can score enough points to beat this team? I think that suggests no. So if Penn State could have managed right there to stop them, and they had 2 good stops before that on a jet sweep and then on a little we call it Q3 because it's the number 3 receiver for us. The team I'm coaching on now, the H-back comes across. He ran that route perfectly, and the safety for Penn State comes and lights him up. They have 2 great stops back to back, feeling good about themselves, and then that Donovan Edwards run just guts them. And so I think that had to have, kind of a deflating effect on them. And so that was a big, big moment. And I honestly think that Donovan Edwards' touchdown was probably the deciding touchdown. The next play we look at is going to be the play that just seals the deal, basically. Blake Corum, similar setup. Watch what happens right here. It's very similar to the Edwards play. Trips to the opposite side, tight end on this side, cut back. So, Chance, we talked about this earlier. Do you think that there's any chance in this world that this is not by design right here?
No, it definitely is, because if you look at it, you get that same wall being made by them blockers, and then that tight end turning out.
Yep.
And then, well, what really seals it is 25 playing that outside right there, and the backer just not coming down into the right gap.
But 25 does a better job right here for Penn State, I think, if you look back.
Oh, yeah, containing it.
Here's
for
the
sure.
thing, though, that gets me is that they figured out if we're going to send an end aggressively into the backfield, run or pass, we have to have containment.
Right.
But the temptation right here, though, is when he gets there, he's just got to cross that line, and it's subconscious. I mean, do you think I'm wrong? I mean, I think it's just a subconscious thing. You're playing forward, the ball's still in the backfield. He crosses his blue line, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. What can you do? I mean, look at Corum go by him. I mean, it looked like a yellow streak shooting by that guy. There is no chance that 25 can catch that man. And, once again, like Chance said, look at all of the backsides of the Michigan offensive linemen. And if you don't think it's by design, look once again, who's down there on the side? A.J. Barnum, the tight end. And what's he doing? Walling that end to the outside to open that cutback lane.
Yeah,
That's
I definitely think it's by design.
With a very similar run. Excuse me, what did you say, Chance?
I said, yeah, I definitely think it's by design. Just the way they're all turned the exact same. So I mean, if you go back to the last play, you'll see them all turn the exact same way. Just have the backside turn and the tight end trying to block out. So what really screws it up here is that 11 sees that the help right here, and you'll see that 177 he's turned the opposite way. So 11 shoots, thinking that since 77 has his back turned, the A gap is going to be the hole where he goes. So he shoots, 77 gets a clip on him, so he's turned one way, he sees him coming, he just gets a clip on him to push him outside, and then that just takes him away from the actual gap where the ball's going to be ran.
Yeah, there's a couple things here. Like, you got a couple slow reactions. Our backside backer, who is still, he's playing at his depth where he started. He gets to the hole really late. I mean, and he doesn't see quite where he should be going as fast as you would hope that he would, because hopefully he would at least be able to affect us a little bit. Maybe cause Corum to go a little bit further towards 25. He's trying to catch up. 25 also has his eyes on JJ. He's worried about the quarterback run. You see him kind of see where his face mask is looking. He is right now. He just realized what happened and it's too late. We talked about 11 kind of rushing in on that first gap that he sees, which that's kind of what we talked about before. When you're teaching linebackers, when you see daylight, when you see an open hole, you're taught to scrape over and fill it. So he sees what he thinks is a bigger hole and he crashes into it. And this is something that I wonder, and I don't really know. So 25 has contain here. At least that's how they're playing it. But then the end takes the outside shoulder of the tight end. So you got 2 guys playing the edge and you have nobody playing that C gap because the tackle goes inside of the B gap. So that C gap isn't really accounted for. Now, I don't know if the middle and the Mike might supposed to be the one who is supposed to, keep watch over that C gap, but he sees the open gap, so he shoots in it. So it could be his fault. He might have supposed to, stayed home. Because if you think about formationally here, if he stays home and your backside backer is the one that crashes that hole, this play is gummed up, because then 11 can then hit that open C gap, which Corum goes through, and all of a sudden this is a smaller gain. Go ahead.
Well, if you look at that, though, I mean, I think that there's an argument, though, here to be made. So let's see, what does the just roll through this and let's see who. Okay, so B gap is taken by the defensive tackle, right?
Yep.
Okay, looks like backside A gap is taken by the other defensive tackle. If you wanted to call him nose, some people do that.
Sure.
With the three technique and a 2-eye. Okay, as you said, the end goes outside to the D gap. Here, that Chance has it drawn exactly what I was going to say. That linebacker is in the very unfortunate position of having to play two gaps because of how they're doing this. And you can't play A gap and C gap at the same time, especially not as aggressively as he goes. Now, one of the things that I saw whenever we were going through the SEC championship game shows that we did, that was a common thing for Alabama when they began to really give Georgia a lot of trouble on the rush, is they took the linebacker from that position and they blitzed him across, like on a run blitz, from position or from depth to that A gap, and it really caused problems. But they also had every other gap filled. And right here, that's the problem, is there's nobody there. So I think you're exactly right, to point that out. And, Chance is right to draw that line there, saying that linebacker's going to A. And honestly, he needs to sit back and try to read, both holes is what it looks like he ought to do, or 25 needs to do something, or the end. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is right here. That end is not getting around Barnum, the tight end, though. He's not going to let that happen. But the thing that I wonder about – go ahead.
I was just going to say communication is probably the key to stopping this, because, if you're going to be gap sound, you got to talk about who has what, and that would be the discussion between this corner and this end right here about who has this gap and who has contain.
I think so.
So, I
really do.
I guess to kind of finish the discussion is gap soundness. Do we know that every gap that we have is covered? And I don't know if I think I've mentioned this. I actually haven't mentioned this on recording, but there's this idea that some teams apparently are getting away from. They're not teaching gap responsibility the way that I was taught it in like the old school way. They're teaching a new technique. It's more about like whose man is what from the defensive perspective, and then like where you're slanting or where you're going, what gap you're going into is based on what your offensive guy in front of you does. So you're basing off of keys. The problem that I have with that is you are asking 11 guys, or at least just 6 or 7 on the front. You're asking a lot of them to all make the correct reads at the same time while everything is in chaos in front of them, while offensive linemen are moving, while there's an H-back, while there's a running back that's coming up. There's a lot of things going on in your eyes. You're asking all of them to read stuff in front all correctly. And if one of them gets it wrong, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but if one of them gets it wrong, all of a sudden, if that's exposed and the offense sees it, boom, a big play happens. And right here, you got 2 guys taking the outside. And if that's the way they want to play that because they're worried about the quarterback keep on the boot on the outside, or they've already been beat on that outside too, so they're just scared of that. So hey, we're going to have one guy really tight with the tight end and scrape down. We're going to have a corner that actually stays outside contained. Okay, that's fine. But where is your help on the inside then? You've created a new gap that is open. So if that's the case, and you're asking your Mike, because 11's a good player, and let's say that in practice and maybe in other games, 11 has shown that he can 2-gap. That, he can cover both as long as he has time to read it. So hey, defensive lineman, get your hands on, cause chaos on the front, so our linebacker can read where the ball's going. Fine, but then he shouldn't be blitzing into the hole. So somewhere along the line, something's wrong. And another thing too that you'll see, like when you call run blitzes. You want someone to cover that spot up if he misses. So you want to make sure that gaps are accounted for. So if he knows that he's taking off into that hole, he needs to tell one of his other backers, like, hey, I'm going. So you've got to cover me here. Then the other thing I talk about, that backside backer, it is a lot to, ask him to come all the way down to the C gap. And that's not what I'm saying that he should do. But if he is supposed to, if he is the one that was responsible for the A gap that 11 rushes through and 11 is able to kind of sit and read, as far as second level defenders, when you're the Mike going in, you've eliminated yourself as a second level defender because you're running into the run blitz. So now you have one second level defender who's to the right side of the defense. You have three to the left. At least you have one extra guy with that outside backer. So at least if you're playing that the backside backer that we're talking about here that just doesn't really, I can't really see his number. What number is he? 41. So if you're 41 here, if you will scrape down and cause this run to bounce to the right, you at least have more defenders that way. And this is just like from an alignment standpoint, it's just you and 25 over here on your right side. Offense is left, and obviously you got safeties behind you, and you're hoping that they would actually take a good angle and make a play. Which that was something else I wanted to point out. All three plays, safeties make bad angles.
Yeah,
but just from, it's hard to tell who is at fault here, whether it's 41, 11, 25, the defensive end. Somebody is wrong, just based on a gap opening up. But you would have liked to see if 11 is going in, like Chance was talking about, there needs to be a communication there where 41 can cover his gap up. And then you have that outside backer like, hey, you can sit where you are because obviously we got trips over there, but be ready to come down into the formation on run. And you don't really see that happen here. I mean, he gets kind of caught up too. He just kind of stands there and gets blocked. So it's really good offensive execution, but it's just, I'm questioning what the call was and whose mistake it was on Penn State's defense. Because again, Penn State has a good defense. It was locked up. This game was tight the whole way through. This is the one that kind of busted it with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It's still a one possession game, but these like little things cause big effects. And then and I guess a extra little bit just as a plus to Michigan, the way that Michigan plays when they are up on you by a touchdown, it feels like 14, not just 7. So while typical high-powered offenses, they feel like you're down by 14, you're down by 21. Okay, you're starting to lose control. You're starting to get out of the game. With Michigan, while it might not seem like that from the viewer, just by the way that their offense runs and the way they play the game, their defense is just encompassing. It feels like when they're up a touchdown, they're actually up 2. And it feels like it's such a hard job to claw your way back in, because this 17-9, it's an 8-point game here. It's a one possession game, but it, like you said, the momentum factor. If they go in tied and Penn State's playing a little bit more loose, hey, we're tied up, we're right where we want them, that's great. But as soon as they go down, all of a sudden that mountain is bigger than it actually it appears to be bigger than it is, because Michigan's offense is demoralizing and their defense is just, it feels like they're always around. They're always going to stop you. They're never going to give up the big play. So clawing your way back into the game just feels like that much more of an impossible task when you're playing Michigan. And I think that complements, the offense and defense, they complement one another, where it just feels like, man, when you go down by a score, it just feels like it's way more than it is. So, that touchdown that we just watched earlier just feels like a nail in a coffin, even though it happened early on in a game. And now you see the real nail in the coffin with this play, and just one more little mistake by the Penn State defense that just cost them.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. One gap wasn't covered, and that's what I think. I'm interested in the design of this play. I'd like to see, what that their concept is, because that play could have gone to multiple gaps. Because if you look back and see how well, because when 11 blitzes, the guard Trevor Keegan slips off of this double team and just like almost like he's like a land shark, just pops up out of the ground and just washes him down the field, and the defensive tackle would just keep washing him on down, and there's not a soul. I mean, there's nothing that can be done right there other than just complete panic. And to go back to your point about their about how that they just, I guess, to put a figure to what you said about them about the style Michigan plays, they beat Penn State in time of possession by almost 7 minutes in this game. That's nearly a half a quarter. They had the football longer than Penn State. That makes a huge difference. And I think that, that a lot of things came together, for Michigan right here. This was, Penn State's a good ball team, and this was a great game. This is honestly, a signature game. And I know Harbaugh wasn't on the sidelines for this one. I think it was Coach Moore's first win, as a head coach or acting head coach, however how you want to say it. But the things that helped them, time of possession, they were able to spring big plays in the run game. They were able to stop Penn State on third down. That was the secret sauce was basically play football like football is meant to be played. Run the ball, find a way to make big plays in the run game, get them off the field on third down, and hold on to the football. And they did the simple things that people have preached, since the wagon days, and it worked out for them. But now the thing that I want to say, this cutback play. Now we watched it 3 times against Penn State, to great effect. It wasn't just a Penn State thing. This play figured heavily into the national championship game as well. And we could even make the point that it might have been the play. It certainly opened up the game for Michigan. And it might have been the play that created a lead that Washington just couldn't find a way to come back from. Now on this one, what you will see, I believe this is the first one is where he presses the line pretty deeply. Am I right in that, Chance?
No. This one is where he cuts back right.
Okay, so just go ahead and play it. I'm wrong on it. I'm thinking of the other one. So the thing that you draw the circle. Watch when Edwards shifts. Look what happens. Now, if we just stop right there, right here. Count the Washington defenders on the left side of the field.
There's 8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now, additionally, watch what happens with the defensive tackle who is lined up. Kind of looks like the splitting the 4-eye-3 technique right there. Watch what happens.
He goes right inside.
Red Sea, dude. Look at that. 9 on one side,
2 defenders.
2 on the other.
2 defenders.
You can't. And look at that. Look at that. You got Loveland, a tight end, coming up there and helping them out, getting that block. And look at him. Watch his positioning. Gets his butt turned around to the hole. Ain't a thing you can do. Now watch this. I love this right here. Let's go of him.
Yep.
Let's go of him. Ain't no sense in keeping on with him.
Run in front of him and let go.
Block. Yeah, don't risk that block in the back. Don't risk that, tacky hold where you just grab onto his arm. Let that guy run because, boy, you got a touchdown. And once again, look at that. Just a cutback. Simple move right here to get
the shift to pistol. Yeah, the shift to pistol, to pistol gets them shifting, and then they also just slant really hard at the snap. So that'll get 9 players on one side of the cutback, and it's 2-on-2. And with the way Michigan's 2 players block, especially with the one being Loveland, that's a good percentage chance, especially because Washington hasn't really faced, especially if you're a DB on Washington, you've never really faced someone like Loveland blocking you in your career. That dude is fast. He's faster than a lineman, and he's also bigger than you, and he's stronger than you, and he has really good technique. He's basically an offensive lineman, but a faster version.
Well, the thing I think here, too, is if you just pause this for a second, count the Michigan players.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah. You got 11 of them in the box. This is like what, people say, just playing them in a phone booth. Mm-hmm. But the thing that's fascinating about this, and it's something that I believe in heavily, you create more space in the modern game by condensing the formation than you would ever imagine because nobody is used to playing this. And that's something I think that Michigan is ingenious in their ability to take advantage of condensing the field, getting people out of position. Let's make a cornerback become a defensive end. Let's make a safety become a linebacker because they don't know. They are told. I'm not saying they don't know. They are told, like, here's where you play. Here's how you do this. They're coached. They're trained. I'm not saying that. But it is not what comes first nature to these guys.
It's not
It
instinct.
is not first nature for a 190-pound cornerback to line up in a 9 technique. It's just not. It's not a good position. Do you have to do it sometimes? Sure you do. But that's what Michigan is inviting every single play when they put these players out there, is they're saying, hey, fellas, let's all come inside this box. It's the dirtiest cat and mouse game ever. And it's so dirty, they're running the same concept over and over and over and over. And on this handful of plays that we've watched, they produced 4 touchdowns. They're having like about a 40-yard per carry average. This is, it's unheard of. It's simply unheard of. And nobody seems to know how to line up to it. Because how do you line up to 11 men in the box when you're used to everything being 10 personnel? It's hard.
You're asking defenses to play inside out instead of outside in. Your DBs are used to being outside on the field.
Yeah.
They're used to being spread out, backed up. Now everybody's back in a box again. So from worrying about pass defense from these formations, you have to line up because you have to respect the run. So you have to line up in, or at least that's how it's perceived. So you must respect the run. So all right, we're going to condense ourselves. But the threat of pass is still there, which means we're going to be trailing. We're going to be tailing off. We're going to be playing inside out, which that is uncomfortable for a lot of, especially like a corner. And you're talking about a true outside corner. They play outside in. That's how they're taught. They use the sidelines, and sometimes they contain. They don't have to play from the inside going outside a lot. So that puts them kind of in a weird spot, and just mentally worrying about where the ball's going, how are they attacking us in the pass game? Are they going to attack us in the run game? They're going to put, we're going to be in spots that we're not used to. And then it's also just kind of, it's a little bit of a, I don't even know a good word for it. It reminds me, it just puts them in a situation that they're not used to, and it makes them overreact, I guess would be a good way to put it. Defenses overreact to things like this, and just they see 9 guys like right on the line, like, all right, we got to match them to that. We watched Penn State do that in the first play. They put 8 guys on the line. Well, they immediately got burnt by it because guys who are used to playing in space and used to having space in front of them to attack, they don't have that anymore. And what means one wrong step, it's game over because you're too close to everything now. And it's like I think of Wake Forest a couple of years ago when they were really, really good. Just 2 years ago, honestly, and that slow mesh that Wake Forest runs. If you've seen them play it, you know what I'm talking about. The quarterback and the running back, they sit next to each other in the backfield longer than you've ever seen anybody do it. And what happens is it makes a defense really, really hesitant. And they play like on their heels. They don't attack very well. They're scared of it. So they sit and they wait. Well, what does that do? That allows the offensive line to get hands-on and to create running lanes for that running back and that quarterback to read. And all of a sudden, the defense thinking, hey, this is something new. We have to do something different because playing like we normally do, we're going to, that's going to get us in trouble. So the defense will play on their heels. Well, if playing on your heels on defense is just a bad idea. You do not want to do that because it allows offensive guys to get heads of steam and allows them to get running lanes open and allows them to attack you. And you don't ever want to be in that position. So then all of a sudden, what should have been a tackle in the backfield or a tackle at the line of scrimmage turns into a 4-yard gain, a 5-yard gain, a 7-yard gain, and then boom, they spring one because the defense is just overcompensating for what they're seeing because it's different. And I feel like that is something similar here. We've seen Penn State do it. Washington did it as well. It's uncomfortable for them, and they overcorrect because they just are not used to it. And all of a sudden, you're asking guys to do something that they've never done all year. Michigan knows that, and Michigan takes advantage of that in really smart ways.
2 things I want to add with what you say on this. Look at what Washington has done with the core of their defense. The 2 defensive tackles. Let's treat this. Let's go to the center of the defense. What they are saying, one of their linebackers has to be saying 77 is the center. 77 is the center. 77, who's Keegan that we talked about making the block on the linebacker at Penn State on the Corum touchdown. He is not the center. He doesn't snap the ball.
Right.
But he is the geographical center. So what they've done is they are using the technique that you use against, say, a single wing team or a team that likes to overload. When you see overload, you want to shift to the overload. So what Penn State is, or not, excuse me, Penn State, but man, I'm all screwed up. What Michigan is doing is they're taking advantage of this. They're banking that whenever you move Edwards over, they're all going to shift because, like you said, you want to meet strength to strength. And they're making a hard swerve cutback out of that pistol formation, which, I mean, just, you know, it's an I formation without the fullback right here. And that's just such a hard play to make because when you see him open up, he doesn't reverse out because there are times when McCarthy will reverse out on that handoff. When he doesn't reverse out and you go straight to the left side of the line, all the defense can conclude is that this is a dive. But you can look at Edwards' demeanor right here and see that he's sitting back in the chair and he's going to cut that backside. This is not a dive. And he runs it perfectly. And Washington pays the price. I mean, I think they have a good idea right here if there is no possibility. But the question then becomes, you saw this against Penn State. You know that they had analysts breaking every film down that Michigan has played. I mean, every game that they played down, they've seen everything. And when you get in these heavy formations, they like the cutback. They beat Penn State with the cutback out of heavy formations. And so, I don't know. I mean, it baffles me that this is the way that you play it, but nevertheless, they did. Let's roll to the next Edwards run, which is actually quite similar to this Edwards run.
Yeah, thinking this one is the one you were talking about earlier.
It is. Yeah, I was mistaken on that other one. The thing that I pointed out with this one, watch Edwards press the line right here. Now, it looks like he makes a mistake, and I guess he kind of does. But watch what he does. Nope, going that way. Can't explain to him what happened right there. And try as best you can to tell us why Edwards made that move, which looks like a total mistake.
So if you're watching this, if you're as a running back, I guess you're taught to read first hole that pops up, go in the inside zone. So what he's going to see here is when he gets the ball, he's going to see 77 have his back turned like this. And then if you go a little more, you'll have 60 keyed in right here. And the hole theoretically should be right there because you also have 52's back turned. The hole is right there. But at the last second, as Edwards cuts to get vertical, you'll see this lineman battle back across. So the hole is now right here. And, you know, Edwards feels that contact. There's no hole. He puts his head down. He kind of just stops and jumps out of it. He plants his foot and jumps out of it. And he's just gone.
Now, something I want to point out on this, because we've talked a lot about Michigan's defensive line. Lots of people talk a lot about Michigan's defensive line. But let me tell you, this offensive line is out of this world. These guys are simply, they're as good as you're going to get, in my opinion. And, I know there are some good lines in the country, and there are a lot of people who would, take issue with that. A lot of folks, down our way in the South, they'd have something to say about that. But I honestly don't care because it doesn't get any better. But here's the thing that I want to go through. I just want to read you these guys' names off. On one, because you seldom get offensive line names, but I want you to notice something that is, a lot of them have a common, they have a common feature. 77, the guard, who we've mentioned, Trevor Keegan, graduate. Okay, next to him there in the center of it, number 60, Drake Nugent, graduate. Then we go on and we look at 52. 52. Carson Barnhart, we mentioned a minute ago, graduate. What do you notice, gentlemen?
Mm-hmm. Graduates, older guys, they've been there a long time.
Number 73, Ladarius Henderson, graduate.
Four graduates.
Okay. Let's come on down. 89, who we mentioned a lot, A.J. Barner, tight end, senior. Let's play it on out so we can catch this number. I think it looks like a 63 or 52. Did you pick up what it is?
53.
Yeah.
53. Let's take a look because we haven't mentioned 53 yet. Number 53. Printe Jones, it looks like. If I butchered it, I'm sorry. Any guess as to what he is?
Graduate or senior?
5 graduates. The 5 offensive linemen. Graduates. Okay. Think that makes a difference?
Mm.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Because especially
I do.
that's without mentioning that
Their
center,
best guy went down, right?
I'll say that's without mentioning that Zach Minter got hurt. Like their best lineman went down. So I mean, it's impressive.
And the thing too that I also like about this for them next year, because there's a lot that I really like about Michigan next year. I know some people, they're like, "Oh, Michigan's a one and done." I don't think they're a one and done. Now, am I saying they're going to win a championship? No, I'm not. I have no idea who's going to do that. But what I'm telling you, this team is going to be solid again. Like 18, Loveland, that we've mentioned, Colston Loveland. He is a sophomore. This guy figures in, to a lot of their blocking schemes. And if I'm guessing, I'm going to say that they got that kid. Because you can look at him. Look at Barner on the other side. He's a big guy. Obviously, Loveland. He's a skinny dude compared to that. This kid is 6'5", 245. Imagine what he'll look like with a full off season in the weight room when he comes out next year.
Right.
That's a big old frame. And I almost guarantee you one of the things that they're really going to be teaching him is this how you get the side of that end so we can run Edwards on that cutback, for 1,000 yards this year. So, I think so much of it remains intact. Yeah, you're losing a lot up front on the offensive line, but they have a great philosophy. And it might take them, there might be a learning curve, but I'm really interested to see what they do. And just to get back to this play, Chance, you explained that perfectly. I understand exactly when you said that. Yep, that's what Edwards is thinking. He sees that hole, but the thing of it is that the defensive tackle crosses Keegan's face right there, kind of gets in the way. But here's the thing that I think is beautiful about what Michigan's doing. Now, they've got their tight end tackle combo over here that's taking those 2 outside defenders, because once again, what you've got now, the defensive tackle clearly jumps into that B gap, and he changes things a little bit. But once again, look at what you got. I can see in the screen 4 defensive backs, 2 linebackers, 2 defensive linemen. That's 8 of the 11 on the side
right
opposite of where this football is going to go to.
Yep.
So when Edwards does this, now you can look at it 2 ways. There's always 2 ways to look at this. Is it be an athletic freak, or is it coaching? Lots of times it's a combination of both, because I don't think that Edwards can press the delete button when he gets that deep into the hole unless he knows in his heart that if this gap is closed, the next gap's probably open. And he didn't just try to wham it in there and hope for the best. He literally stomps his foot, backs out of the hole, shifts down, and lo and behold, your blocking system on the outside is doing what it always does. In this case, like I said earlier, if the guy goes outside, take him outside. That's obviously what happened with Barner's man. If the guy goes inside, take him inside. That's obviously what happens with the tackle's man. The system holds. And I think that what you're seeing, like I've really been so strong on Michigan because when I watch them play, the thing that stands out to me, and from all through this season, I'm one of those people, I'll be up front with you. I'm not somebody who can quote, every person's name on the team. So a lot of times, I'm a numbers person. But what I am even more than that is I'm a coach, and I'm a coach who loves to see systems work. They have a system that is like no other. And I don't care what team that and I'm not like a diehard Michigan guy. I'm not that guy. But I'm telling you right now, I'm beating the drum because what I'm seeing on the field is the most exciting thing I've seen probably ever. They have a system that works, and I'm anxious right now to see them start playing again with whoever it is they're going to line up out there. And honestly, I don't think it makes a difference who the coach is. I think if they can keep the core of their staff in place, if it's Sharon Moore next year, if it's Jim Harbaugh next year, they have got a system that is worth watching, and they've got a system that's worth playing in for these kids. And I don't know. I mean, I like what they do. I like how they look, and I'm honestly excited for them. I really am. And it's just that just this play right here, just to have the confidence to know this gap is closed, but I think there might be one down the line that I can get. That's insanity. I mean, that's totally insane to me. But by golly, it works, and it won them a national championship.
Mm.
What more could you want?
Yeah, the coaching point is an interesting one because obviously Harbaugh has piled the staff and culture and everything else, and I don't know how much of a say he has with the scheme of it. I mean, I'm sure he has a say. A lot of their defensive stuff has some similarities to the Baltimore Ravens defense.
Sure.
His brother is the head coach there, so obviously there's relationships there from the NFL and his time when he was at San Francisco. You can see that get adapted to what Michigan does, but when we look at like the technique of each individual position group, so we're not talking about scheme anymore here necessarily. We're talking about the technique and what is being taught by the
Yes.
position coaches. So DB, defensive line, offensive line, running back, linebacker, and tight end. The weakest position they have on the field is receiver. Pretty much every other position on this field is stellar when it comes to everything that they do. Yes, we know that they have good athletes, and to play at Michigan, you would have to be. But it goes beyond good athletes because you see different people in here. I mean, we talked about Michigan lost what I think would many consider be their best offensive lineman to an injury, and yet they just move on. They plug and play. Hey, who's up next? We have a system. We know we got guys here. We know they've been taught correctly. We're just going to keep on mowing down people. And they did. They just continue to run through opponents. And literally run through them in the run game. And I think even if Harbaugh leaves, if they're able to maintain most of their staff, especially their position group guys, they at least will be being taught correct technique and fundamentals. I know a lot of people have said, and I've seen some comments say that if Harbaugh leaves, then most likely their defensive coordinator leaves, and that would be a big blow because I think that their defensive scheme
Mm-hmm.
is phenomenal. But I also think that if they can hold some position guys and whoever comes in next, I would imagine, especially if Moore is the head coach, which I think everyone assumes that might be the way they're going. If he is, I imagine that he will want to maintain some sort of normalcy to the way they had it this last year. I don't think he'd want to change too much because of how much success that they have had. And if he's able to kind of hold the ship together and keep some of these position guys, or if he knows enough to, get other guys in that teach it a similar way, I don't think Michigan is just going to drop off the face of the earth. Are there questions? Yeah. When you lose 5 offensive linemen, 6 really, you lose 6 really good offensive linemen, there's obviously a question mark there. But from the way that they teach it, I feel like they probably have guys that are going to be able to step up and do a good job. They're not going to have the reps together in game, and that does mean something. And game reps matter, experience matters. So it might be a little while before they all mesh as one unit, like you see them on this 23 team. But I still feel like they'll be quite good. They'll just have to get used to playing together. And obviously, there's another big question mark when it comes to some of the DBs that they're going to be losing, and I believe they get both tackles back, so that's a huge bonus for them in their defense. And then the quarterback, McCarthy leaving, and there is a question mark that surrounds the quarterback position on whether they go with the guy that they've had, Orgy is his name. If they go with him, or do they try and find someone from the transfer portal? They haven't done that yet. Or if it's a young guy they go with, there is questions around that. But Edwards is back. Their run scheme should still be very similar. And for the most part, their defense should still look good. And I know they're losing guys, but it does feel like they are set up for more guys to come into the system and play at a high level rather than their team being just completely dependent on guys, on really big stars making big plays. They do have that, but they also have the scheme and the technique to match. And which is why they won the national championship this year. So I still think they will be a good team. I'm not, again, I don't think any of us are saying that they're going to make it, run it back. Who knows? But I do think that they have what it takes to still maintain and be a good football team because the basis for good teaching has already been there for a while.
Yeah. And I think that's, honestly, it's a different model than going to raid the pool. I mean, I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's a longer way to the top, but I think that when you get there, what you've built is honestly so much better. And so I think that really, I mean, right now, the way that it looks like it's shaken out, Ohio State has made some really good moves in the transfer portal. And so, I mean, I think ultimately this is going to be a battle of philosophies. Because, I mean, Michigan's got a streak on them. And if I'm being honest, I've kept up. I mean, even though, I'm down here in Tennessee, Georgia neck of the woods, I've kept up with this rivalry for a long time. I mean, every year it's just been, part of me, honestly. It's always been a really important game to watch. I love Big Ten football. I always have. But I think what you're seeing is that's going to be a clash of two philosophies. And if I'm being honest with you, and I think Ohio State people, I know they wouldn't want to hear this line, but I think that if Ohio State doesn't handle their business in the Michigan game next year, I think that, you got yourself another John Cooper up there. And I don't think that's what anybody, in Columbus or any of the Buckeye fan base wants to hear. But I've seen what that looks like. You can get right to the edge, but you can't win it.
Mm.
I think this Michigan team can pose a lot of problems because there were many times, in which I doubt, I'm way older, I doubt y'all remember, have ever even heard the name John Cooper. I've seen Cooper take some teams filled with studs and lose to Michigan every year. And it was such a rare thing. I think, he beat them, maybe twice, tied them once, I think. And Cooper could win everything, it seemed, other than the Michigan game. And I'm interested to see next year because, Michigan's not going to be next year what they are this year or have been this season. But I think that they've got an identity, and and I've got confidence in them, and I want to see how it plays out for them. Following this year, I think there's a lot of upside there. Anything else? I mean, like we said, this is pretty amazing. A strip of plays, several of them, I think 4 of the 5 we showed, in obvious passing downs that gained massive yardage on the ground. So Michigan, maybe they're showing a new pattern, to how to handle passing situations. I don't know. Maybe it'll change, maybe it won't. But nonetheless, I mean, interesting stuff, guys. Any last comments? Chance?
Let's say I think this just shows that defense and running the ball is still king in football. Because I mean, I know a few years people started to say, the spread's where it's at. Let's spread them out. Let's pass the ball. That's how you win games. But I think we're going back to that defense and running the ball wins championships. Be able to manage the game, make smart decisions, play the game of football the smart way, and what I consider to be the right way. So Michigan went back to that and they won a championship. And I'd like to see more teams do that. And I think more will follow that Michigan suit right there.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
I'm hopeful that you're going to start seeing some more emphasis put on better scheme and technique from the defensive side. I've been driven crazy over the last 10 years at how defenses have gotten away from sound defense. Just the idea to me that you're not teaching gap responsibility anymore just kind of throws me for a loop. I understand the concept of the new way of doing things and that it's still sound in its own way. But to me, the evidence on the field tells me that that new way doesn't work very well. And, maybe if it's taught so well that the new way does work, but I know the old way works. And everyone now knows the old way works because that's how Michigan does it. And they won a national championship and beat some good teams to do it. So it gives me some confidence and hope that you're going to see some teams try and emulate this, try and copy what Michigan has done. There will be differing degrees of success depending on the people who are trying to teach this in a different way or trying to emulate it the best they can. But it does give me hope just from a coaching standpoint. There's a lot of guys that are, in the league, in NFL, and then in college football, who I feel like are getting paid an exorbitant amount of money to make very simple mistakes that should not ever be there. And they give those things away because it's like in a new agreement on the field. Like, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to all score 40 points a game, and hopefully our team gets them, one more stomp than you guys do. I don't think that's smart. I don't think that's good football. I think that just takes so much strategy and value away from the game. And I'm not saying that, I mean, obviously these guys are trying, obviously they're not just, showing up and not doing anything. But when I see a team coached the way that Michigan is, and I see a team that executes the way Michigan is, I can't but I'm not really a Michigan fan, but they've made me a fan by watching them because they just do it the right way. And it's so refreshing to see on all levels, offense, defense. There were some special teams issues. We won't get into that, but then just technique on all positions. They teach it the right way and they execute it the right way. And just from the football side of things, it is exciting to watch. I know, like, we get really into the meat of all this, and we go like down in the gritty details of like just steps and footwork. But when we see that, the difference that good teaching and bad teaching makes between those two things, we see a team that won a national championship and a team that didn't. So, kudos to Michigan and all the people who have been following them for a long time and who have been kind of waiting on this moment. Congrats to you. You guys you had a great year, won the national championship, but also just, I'm very happy to see complete teaching and complete execution by a team, because it's been a little bit. So this has been very exciting to cover this team and watch them and all the good things that they do.
Yeah, I think with
agree.
that,
Daniel,
go ahead.
well, I wanted to say before we sign off, I wanted to say we appreciate, honestly, beyond words, how many of you have watched our stuff, how many of you have shared our stuff, have subscribed to this channel. Honestly, it's been insane, and I think it's honestly been more than we've ever expected. It's really been fun talking a lot about this team with everybody and you and the few other teams that we discussed along the way. It's a good opportunity to get to talk ball. We appreciate talking back and forth with you some in the comments, and just keep supporting us, please. Recommend us. Tell other people about us. We're new to this. We're trying hard, and we hope to give you a product that that you can enjoy and be proud of. With that said, Chance, turn it over to you.
Yeah, for all of us here at Locked In, if you want to be a winner like Michigan, stay locked in.